playing that delightful rascal Fagin, was this gentleman, Barry Pearl. We got to know each other over cards in between shows and in the dressing room between breaks, and one very lovely, fun group lunch with the cast that we may or may not touch on, but I'm very proud and happy to say that I've known this gentleman for 20 some years, and I just gave it away. And I am very proud to introduce Mr. Barry Pearl to join us in this webinar.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. It's a delight and an honor to be with you guys today. Yeah, 22 years. I'm proud of that number because you freeze every once in a while, so I didn't hear whether or not you told the story of my betrothal.
I have not. Do you want to tell it, or do you want me to?
I can tell it. Like Ron said, we were doing a production of Oliver at the Santa Barbara Civic Light Opera. And one Saturday afternoon, in between shows, we had just, you and I decided to catch some barbecue at Woody's in Goleta.
Yes, yeah.
And I love me some barbecue. I'm a Jewish man who knows his pork. And so I jumped at the chance. So we walk out the stage door. Again, it's in between shows after the matinee. And we bump into two of Ron's friends, Cindy and Pat. Mm-hmm. And you thought that they were coming to see the show the following day on that Sunday. Yep. You hadn't realized that it was Saturday. And so we wound up going to lunch with Cindy and Pat. And I fell in love with Cindy over a plate of ribs. And I remember asking you, I said, I thought she was your girlfriend. And you mentioned to me that you had remembered my reaction when you told me, no, you were just friends, right?
Yep, I loved it because I think you actually said to me, your girlfriend is very pretty. And I said, oh, she's not my girlfriend, she's just a friend. And the reaction was, really?
Yeah.
And I loved that reaction. It was just delightful.
And then I gave you, I said, well, here, give her my number, because I figured that's the proper way to do it. And she turned around and said to you, no, if he wants to call me, he's got to call me. If he wants to get in touch, he's got to call me. And so I got her number and called her, and the rest is history. So we were hanging out together and actually lived together for how many years before? We only got married 4 years ago.
Right.
4 years ago.
Yep.
So we 18 years, something like that, before I popped the question. And it was Joey Travolta's wife, Wendy Shawn Travolta, daughter of the late Dick Shawn. We're all buddies. And she said, I want you to buy a piece of bling for that ring finger. And you're going to do this. And I guess it was one day, it was a day after Thanksgiving 4 years ago. We went out to brunch. And when we met each other at the deli, as I was hugging Wendy, I said, let's go shopping tomorrow. So we went out and we bought a ring. Joey has it on December 5th of that year, which December 5th is our dating anniversary. December 5th of that year, we took a cruise to celebrate that. And that night I proposed to her on the ship.
All right.
Nice.
I got to tell you, I love any love story that includes a plate of ribs.
Oh, please. Please. Baby backs.
Oh,
baby.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I want to let our people that are on the live webinar know that if you want to ask a question at any point during our chat today, go ahead and type it in using the Q&A feature down below, and we're going to try to get as many as we can throughout our discussion today. So, Barry, let's jump right in. You got your start super early in life, and I would just love to know what it was that kind of made you decide that this is what you wanted to do.
Well, there was always music playing in the house. 78 the records, the 78s. I have that Victrola. It was a combo AM radio and 70. It's a gorgeous piece of furniture. I still have that with a whole bunch of 78 albums when albums were just that. You know,
Wow.
they were an album of 78 records, you know, several records in one album. And so there was music going on all the time. And my mother and father had been divorced since I was a year old. So I was raised by my mother, my 3 aunts, and my grandmother. So all these wonderful women in my life, right? And very supportive women. And my mom got me enrolled in a tap dance class, Miriam Menser's tap dance company. And at the end of each year, they would do a review at the Millersville State Teachers College in my hometown of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And because I was the youngest little boy, they teamed me up with the youngest little girl, Maxine Gilman, became good buddies of mine, a good buddy of mine. They would kind of center the show around these 2 young whippersnapper kids. How do you like that word, whippersnapper?
Yeah. Yeah.
And showing my age. And from there, my mom got me involved in the community theater there, the Lancaster Little Theater. I did a couple shows there, and then 2 shows at the Franklin and Marshall College Green Room Theater, which is Franklin and Marshall. Not only is it a medical school, but it was also a fine arts school. And I wound up doing a production of Tall Story and a production of Richard III with Roy Scheider, the late Roy Scheider playing Richard III, because he was an alum. And in 1959, they were looking for a kid to play the role of Sonny Flood in Dark at the Top of the Stairs at the Fulton Opera House, now the Fulton Theater. And I got the gig. And a fellow who was an aspiring playwright from New York by the name of Chuck Miller, Charles E. Miller, he needed to pay the rent, so he took a job running lights for this production in Lancaster. Sure. And, you know, I was kind of always looking for daddy, and I kind of took a shine to him, and he took a shine to me and my mom, and he told my mom, one day, I'm going to get your son on Broadway.
Wow.
They were looking for the replacement of Randolph McAfee in Broadway's Bye Bye Birdie. Kid playing it, Johnny Borden, was going to leave, or was leaving, or had just left to do Milk and Honey with Molly Pecan, new Broadway show. And they'd seen like 250 kids. And Chuck Miller was friendly with the secretary of the man who produced Bye Bye Birdie, Edward Padula. He was friendly with a guy named Bob Fagan of all names. Fagan. And he told Bob, he said, I got the kid, I'll make a phone call. So he called my mom, and all I knew is that I got the gig. I didn't know from auditions. I thought I was going to be on Broadway. Power of positive thinking. So we were down at my aunt and uncle's farm. My mom come driving down and says, we're going to pack our things and go to New York. You have an audition for Bye Bye Birdie. Wow. And we did just that, I guess, the following day. And I think that day, Chuck took me down to the Lambs Club and into the basement with a piano and taught me there's no business like show business.
Uh-huh.
And I was because I used to listen to the 78 of Annie Get Your Gun, Ethel Merman. And that song is in that show. And I went and I auditioned at the Schubert Theater, right off of Schubert Alley, I mean, classic. And for Gower Champion, who directed it. And they asked if I had another song. I didn't. They had me sing Happy Birthday. And the next thing you know, I got the gig like right then and there. I went to work the following day, which is a Wednesday. My mom needed to go home and pack up our things. I stayed with Chuck in his room flat while my mom went back and packed up. And she had expected that I would go on that following Monday, but I was ready by that Saturday. Mom missed my debut. So end of August of 1961, I had my Broadway debut playing Randolph McAfee at the Schubert Theater in Bye Bye Birdie, and the rest, as they say, is history. And by the way, Ron, the next show that I did, the next Broadway show I did was the original production of Oliver. Right. That was my first foray into that Oliver culture. Wow. And then to later play Fagin again, to play Fagin for the first time. And then actually bring Clive Revel up to see that production. Do you remember that I did that? Clive Revel was the original Fagin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd actually called the late Davy Jones also and asked, because he had a ranch up there, I want to say, and invited him to come to see the show, but he couldn't at the time. So, kind of these wonderful circles, these goes around, comes around kind of things,
Yeah.
Wow. So we have a question from John and Laura. How old were you at that time? And
I was
when
11.
you were 11 years old. And
Wow.
when you started working on Broadway, was it intimidating, or were you, was there any element of like stage fright or anything, or just what were your memories from that time?
In my recall of it, no, it was very exciting. I kind of took it all in stride. Again, see, I didn't know from like auditioning. We kind of auditioned. It was always between me and this other kid, and either I'd get it or he'd get it. He got it. There was no sense of competition really. So I didn't have those nerves going in. I thought like I had the gig kind of thing. And working with Paul Honor and Dick Gautier, the late Dick Gautier, well, they're both the late Paul Lynde, the late Dick Gautier, who I became friendly with as an adult, when I became an adult. He was a friend of mine for the longest time. And no, it wasn't daunting at all. I kind of took it all in stride, as I recall.
Wow.
Barry, I know you are occasionally experiencing some lags. I just want to let everybody know that your connection is a little hesitant at times, but know that even when you do freeze, it seems to come right back.
Yeah.
Right back, and you're continuing the thought that you were saying.
Like right now. Right now.
Yeah.
Let's see. So you kind of credit then like community theater being the place where you caught the bug, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I wonder, is that community theater still going, and have you been back since?
I've been back to Lancaster many times. In fact, I've been back to the Fulton Theater many times. I guess the Actors Company of Pennsylvania, which I think is no longer, they shared the stage at Fulton. And the late Jean Clemson would bring me back, and she knew me from when I was a kid. She brought me back to do chapter 2 and lend me a tenor. And it wasn't until the late Michael Mitchell took over as artistic director that the Fulton itself brought me back. And actually, it was very strange there. It wasn't the warmest situation. I would have to sort of beg them, please let me work for you. And when a friend of mine, my dear friend Lurie Horn-Spepper, was a stage manager, she'd gotten some kind of notification that Fulton was looking for a stage, or she was looking at some kind of magazine where you'd go to look for that kind of work, and she noticed that the Fulton was doing a production of Oliver, and she said, "You better audition for this thing." So I actually booked my own flight. I booked an audition online, and I flew back on my own dime to audition for this production of Oliver. And I had met the late Michael Mitchell prior to that, about 2 years prior, but it's kind of warm. It wasn't, you think the prodigal son, I'm from Lancaster. I was in Greece, come on, guys. But I think they thought that my head was bigger than my hat, if you will. And they really didn't take kindly to wanting to promote me. It was a very strange dynamic. And so I went to audition. He goes, "Oh, you came back to visit your family?" I said, "No, Michael, I've come back really to audition for you."
Yeah.
And I got the gig, and we fell in love. And then he up and passed away, unfortunately. Now a gentleman named Mark Robin is running the place. But I haven't worked there since Oliver, but the Oliver production was just so wonderful. I forget exactly. How that led me to the question. So community theater and the Lancaster Little Theater, I don't think exists anymore. But here's something that goes back even further than that. And I don't know if I mentioned this to you. It's kind of ironic considering what's going on in the world today. But before stepping onto the community theater stage, I remember I was either in kindergarten or the first grade at the age of 6, and at Lafayette Elementary School. And this is 1956, folks, so you have to remember that. I remember there was a production done by the 6th graders at Lafayette, the upperclassmen. They did a show. And it was the first time, I want to say, that I really ever saw live theater was at my elementary school.
Okay.
You're not going to believe what it was that I saw and that had me fall in love with these upperclassmen and want to get their autographs. And you'll never guess what this thing was. I mean, it's kind of a little heinous. It was a minstrel show.
Oh.
It was
Okay.
blackface, a minstrel show, an interlocutor. But then, you know, who knew? But that was really to see that first thing as live theater and say, I want to do that. That's terrific. Well, you know, you don't just like you don't watch Amos and Andy anymore, or Heckle and Jekyll, et cetera, et cetera. You know, we've grown up, or we'd like to think we've grown up and grown past that. But that was really the bug that bit me before I actually stepped on the stage and had that bug bite me.
Sure. Well,
I have a quick question, Mark. That production that you have of Oliver that you did, the Fulton, did you also play Fagin in that show?
Yeah. Yes. That was the second production. The first one was the one with you.
Okay. Oh, okay. So that was after.
Yes, and much better makeup, I might add, because by that point in time, I had played the genie in California in Disney's California Adventure production of Aladdin, and my buddy Dan Gates, who did makeup, produced a makeup for me that with the nose and me how to do it, and I used that makeup for the production for Fulton. It was wonderful. If you go on my website, you can see that makeup. It's pretty terrific.
So it was a different nose than you wore in our production.
Yes, because I didn't really wear a nose. I just contoured and, you know, did bigger nostrils, but this was a whole, you know, proboscis.
I remember seeing that at some point in time and wanting to know if you still had the nose.
Yeah, I've got all of that. I've got all that stuff. Yeah, it's a great makeup. It took me a long time. I go in about an hour or so before half hour to get that makeup on. It took me so long afterwards to shower and get out of it, but it was well worth it. Well worth it.
That's awesome. So I always love when I hear when an actor comes back to a show, and especially with a show like Oliver, when you played, you know, one of Fagin's boys and then come back later to play Fagin. What is that like, and what did you bring from your experiences in the original Broadway company to like shaping your Fagin? Well,
it actually is in it's stages, and I'll tell you why. I played one of the boys in the original, and they were both the workhouse boys that you see singing Food Lawyer's Food, and then we became Fagin's gang after that. So it was one group of kids.
Right.
And so from there, they also had me understudy Charlie Bates, the role of Charlie Bates, who had a line during the Thieves' Kitchen, the first time you see Fagin, where he's kind of Dodger's lieutenant, the Artful Dodger's lieutenant. And I understudied him, the kid playing Charlie Bates, George Priolo, understudied the Artful, and with Davy Jones. Davy Jones had played, but I was in the show before Davy was actually. Michael Goodman had originated the role of the Dodger. And George, again, was the understudy. So when George would go on for Dodger, I'd go on for Charlie Bates. Following that, there were three summer stock productions that I played the Dodger. So I went from one of the boys to the Artful Dodger. And the first production that I did was in Kansas City with the late Jules Munchin. You know who Jules Munchin is? You know the movie On the Town with Gene Kelly and Sinatra and Jules Munchin. So I did that production in Kansas City. Then the following year we did a production. It was a tour. And the third year was in Dallas, Texas, again with Jules Munchin. And what I do was I had a manager by the name of Muriel Carl, and she had a whole stable of kids. I would rehearse the kids. I would direct the kids at a tender age of 16, 17, 18 years old. We'd audition en masse. So I'd have a boy sing Where's Love, playing Oliver Where's Love, and then I'd come out as the Dodger meets Oliver, and that goes into Consider Yourself, where all the boys would come in, and we would audition like that. And invariably, we would get each gig.
Wow.
The fourth summer, I was 20 years old by this point. It was the summer of 70. And we go in and audition for the St. Louis Municipal Opera's production of Oliver that starred Sid Caesar and Karen Morrow and Michael Kirmoyan as Bill Sykes. And the guy that was the artistic director of that theater at the time, artistic director of Kansas 4 years prior. And he knew how well I worked with the kids. And he said to me, Barry, the late Glenn Jordan was the gentleman's name. He said, "You're too old to play the Dodger anymore, but how would you like to come and co-direct it?" Wow. In other words, you would work with the kids. And the kids, all their scenes were with Fagin. So I directed Sid Caesar and all the kids and all those scenes for the Municipal Opera's production. And then Sid hired me on after opening night. I was done, but Sid hired me on. I became kind of his guy Friday. And he sent me on to Indianapolis to prepare the production. He was going to move to Indianapolis. Okay, so that's my Dodger experience and my directing experience at the tender age of 20. So Fade Out, Fade In, we're now, how many years later? That was in 70. So now we did our production 20 years ago, 2000. So some 30 years later.
Yeah.
Now I want to play Fagin. That's on my bucket list. And to answer your question, Mark, all I had to do was channel Davy Jones, who played the Dodger. All I had to do was channel Clive Revel. And there was my Fagin. You know, that was those were my bases, my base eye.
Yeah, base eye.
And I did the same thing with the role of Nathan Detroit. I've done 4 productions of Guys and Dolls, I want to say, playing Benny South Street once, and then Nathan 3 times. And the second and the fourth production, which was the first time playing Nathan and the third time playing Nathan, I did it at the Studio Theater. And who did I see play it? My friend Ira Denmark was a wonderful Nathan. And then my friend, the late S. Mark Jordan, who played, you know Smark.
We did the version of Titanic down in LA with S. Mark.
That's right, that's right. Well, he had played Nathan years prior, but I did it with him when he was playing Rusty Charlie or... anyhow, whatever he did as the character he played, it was his dynamic that I just had him. And this is the greatest thing that an actor can get from another actor. In that third production, the fourth production, but the third that I played Nathan, S. Mark came to see the show, and he came backstage afterwards, and he had huge tears in his eyes as he passed the torch to me. He said, "Now you are the Nathan," because, you know, he had played Nathan all those years in so many productions, and he was like handing me the gauntlet, if you will. Wow. And that was a real gift that one actor can. That if you're familiar with the show, I think one of my least favorite characters and my least favorite songs in any show is the character of Arvide, and that song that he sings to Miss Sarah. Not my favorite.
Yeah.
Say again? You know the song I'm talking about?
It's got a pretty melody. Mansions I can wish you.
Yes, I know, but just doesn't tickle my ears. Well, let me tell you, folks, not too long ago, I guess in the last 2 years, they were doing a production of Guys and Dolls, and my agent wanted to submit me for the role of Arvide. I said, no, I don't. That would brought everything so into focus. No, I want to play Nathan again, you know, but not looking like this.
Yeah. I played Sky twice, and I can't do that anymore either.
I know. You know, you can play Arvide. You know.
No.
And I'm happy to announce that Ghostlight will be doing Guys and Dolls with Ron Graham as. Yeah.
I tell you what, I'll play Nathan and have Barry play Arvide.
There you go.
You froze. I didn't hear what you said. You play Nathan.
I said I'll play Nathan and you can play Arvide.
There you go.
So we have a question here from Sophia. Sophia is asking, what is your favorite show? And I'm assuming stage show. What's your favorite show you've done? And do you have any favorite shows you haven't done yet?
Well, I haven't, though I've done Fiddler on the Roof twice. First time playing Muckle, and then playing Laser Wolf. There again, a graduation. And I've said this many times before. I want to play Tevye.
Yeah.
I've always wanted. I have so many favorite shows. I just did a terrific production of Ragtime, and I got to tell you, I'd auditioned for Ragtime so often to play the role of Tate. That was on my bucket list. Yeah. I'm a little long in the tooth to play that role now, but I just played grandfather, and it was so rewarding. It's a small role. Well, there are no small roles, or only small actors, but I had a great deal of fun playing grandfather in a very relevant piece of theater, relevant for what's happening today. Directed by the amazing Paul D. Bryant. He was in the original production, and he's directed many productions and choreographed many productions. He did a great production for Musical Theater West, and it was actually the last production that they did before they had to shut shop because of what's happening now. And it was an amazing cast, just a terrific. So I love doing that show. Guys and Dolls, again, one of my faves. 12 Angry Men.
Ooh, yeah.
And I did that at the Pasadena Playhouse under the direction of my dear friend Sheldon Epps. And we did it with 6 black men and 6 women. Pretty incredible production. Again, exceedingly relevant for today.
Sure.
So there are a number of them, Sophia. Greece, of course, because I played Sonny in the national tour of Greece. Had a great time doing that. There are very few, I guess I can count on my one hand, the theater experiences that I haven't enjoyed so much. But most often I've had some great times doing some wonderful theater. Just working is what I like to do.
Absolutely. Well, and Sophia, I think that one of the great things about
questions. You have 10 questions here. We should answer some more.
Yeah, we're gonna hit those questions here. But I just want to say, one of the great things about this medium is that there's always new things coming up too.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of new contemporary pieces coming out that are just I'm waiting for those rights to be available.
Yes.
So, Mark, I want to read one of these questions for you. It's actually from one of our board members, who is also our resident choreographer. And you had mentioned, and I'm going to read this. I'm going to do Anna.
You froze. Do it again.
I'm going to do Anna the way I think she would have asked this question.
Okay.
Oy vey, Gower champion, you're killing me. What was he like?
He was wonderful. Gower and Marge, I got to play with both of them because they had come. Well, I remember meeting Marge up in Vegas because Tony Mordente had directed the Vegas production. I'd done the Broadway show for a month, the last month on Broadway in '61. Then went out on tour with it, and I toured immediately. And then the summer of '62 did the Las Vegas production at the Riviera Hotel. The Riviera doesn't exist anymore. It's so strange. Yeah. And Tony Mordente, who played Action in West Side Story, was also in Birdie at one point in time, and is the father of Lisa Mordente, whose mother is Chita Rivera.
Wow.
So I remember meeting, I guess Gower and Marge were up there in Vegas. They were great. I mean, it was so long ago, but they were really terrific to me. That's what I remember. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Nice.
So Jessica is asking, I love this question. How did you balance acting and school since you were such a young age when you started?
It was very, very tough. I was like an A student at Lafayette Elementary in the grade, and had to go to school via correspondence. So when I went out on the road, I'd get my studies sent to me, and I had my books. We had a tutor on the road, and it was exceedingly tough. And my grades slipped, and it was very hard doing it. I'd do the stuff and then send it in. And then when I got back in the spring to actually go to school, I felt like I was very far behind. It was very hard. The whole thing was hard. And then there were several shows after that I went out on tour. I mean, again, Oliver and A Thousand Clowns and Gordon. And it was very hard. I fell back. I'd failed like an English course and a Spanish course and a geometry course and a U.S. history course. So there were 4 courses that backed me up. I had to take an extra year of high school actually because of it. But I graduated, and the head of the upper school at the time said to me, if we can't get you through professional children's school, Barry, we might as well close our doors. Because that school was built for folks like myself or for kids whose parents traveled, different from PA, performing arts. The movie is it Flashdance? It's around. It's not Flashdance. Fame. Beg your pardon. Fame is built around. Mm-hmm. That school was a conservatory. You couldn't work when you went to PA, but PCS, that was what it was designed for. So I actually wound up graduating and going to college. I went to Carnegie Mellon University, graduated with a BFA. So who was it that asked? Jessica asked that question. It was hard. It was very hard. Yeah. The adjustment was very hard, but I got through.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you don't think about. You know, the kids on Broadway today, they're still having to go to school.
Oh, you froze.
Maybe it's a little bit easier with the internet now, but yeah, that's part of it.
Yeah.
Emily Spink asks, do you consider yourself an actor who can sing dance, singer who can act sing, or a dancer who can sing act? Do you still tap dance?
I'm just a girl who can't say no.
Nice.
That's a very good question. And I think I'm an actor who can sing and dance. I did not study as hard as I should when it came to dancing, nor did I take the singing lessons that I should. I'm glad that it came naturally, but I'd be a much better dancer and a much better singer had I studied. And I fell short there. Bad on me. And I encourage people to take private classes. And if you're going to go to college, listen, Carnegie Mellon University is a different school today. It's a much better school than it was back in the golden age. Godspell came out of Carnegie, and it was before they had a musical theater department. Now it's an amazing facility, amazing conservatory. But I urge people to study histories and languages and psychology. I didn't get that when I went to Carnegie. It was all about drama. It was a conservatory. And I'm not as well-rounded academically as I would have liked to have been. That's the truth.
Oh. So what, did you get your degree in drama then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I have a background in drama, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's always interesting to me because even when I was in college, musical theater as a degree didn't really exist at too many schools.
It didn't exist at Carnegie until after I graduated. And now there's a musical theater department.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see here.
I got one for you, Mark.
Go ahead.
Barry, this kind of touches on something that I wanted to ask you about. I remember talking to you a couple of times where you had been doing a show, several different shows.
You froze again. You talked to me a couple times about what?
Sorry, you had been doing a couple different shows, and the show was about to end. And I remember the angst you felt a couple of times about, oh my God, I don't have another job lined up, and I don't know what I'm going to do, in spite of the fact that you're always working. And Annie L. has asked, have there been moments in your career when you've been discouraged between gigs? What have you done as an artist to keep inspiration and motivation alive in a career?
What have I done as an artist? What?
To keep inspiration or motivation alive in a career that can be unstable at times.
I have been exceedingly fortunate to, as you say, always work, making a living, doing what I love doing. And at the same time, when I moved out here in '76 to California, I started to study improvisation with Howard Storm. Mm-hmm. And Howard's a great director, was with the committee improv company in the Bay Area, and directed a bunch of Mork and Mindy's television, and just a great director and a great teacher. And I fell in love with the Viola Spolin theater game process. Mm-hmm. And so much so that I started to teach it in 1979 and put together my own school called the Acting Lab. My friend Don Petrie, who used to call himself Don Robinson, Petrie directed some small movies like Mystic Pizza, Richie Rich, Grumpy Old Men, Miss Congeniality, you name it.
Small stuff. Yeah.
He taught he's a dear friend. He taught my scene study class for me, and I had a dear friend, Beth Lawner, who teach a commercial workshop for me. And so we were all known as the Acting Lab. So in between times and during, I would teach improv. So that kept my foot in it, and both feet in it. Mm-hmm. And I learned so much from teaching, and it kept me active. I also started to direct, I had two improv companies, Short Ribs and actually 3, Execution, and the Alley Oops. So I just have always been active in that way, Ron. And who was it? Elle?
Anne.
And I've been very fortunate. And then going from gig to gig, but that's not to say that I didn't have angst every time I was done with a project. I remember the great Helen Hayes, till the day she passed. She would always, a successful actress would always oichen vey over not working. It's going to be my last job. I think we always do that. It's natural, it's part of the heritage.
Yeah, my apologies to Anne, because I just realized Anne L is actually Anne Lorentzen, right? So I'm assuming that's your sister. I'm a little slow on the uptake. And Barry, this is not to be blowing smoke anywhere. You have, as you say, been very fortunate, but the reason is you are a marvelously talented actor. I had the great pleasure to see you portraying the genie in Disney's live production of Aladdin at California Adventure. And I say without hesitation that you gave Robin Williams a run for his money. You were marvelous.
Thank you.
I laughed incredibly. So.
Well, thank you. That's big. That's very big.
That's honest.
Thank you very much.
So I would love to talk a little bit about the Spolin method, and because for those of you that are unfamiliar with it, it's a kind of a curriculum based around theater games that get the actor out of themselves. And I think she was kind of famous for saying that it's about the actor, the project becoming part of the actor, not the actor becoming part of the project. And so, it's getting your whole body, mind, soul into the character and into the work. So you obviously found that was a really big motivator in what you did. Like, how do you use that as you're developing roles?
First of all, it led me to be even more fearless than I already was. Acting with wild abandon has been something that has come fairly natural. This really reinforced it. There is pretty much nothing that I can be asked to do that I won't hesitate to do. And that's in part, not only because of the Spolin method, because of the improv, also because this is going to sound wild. Back in the mid-'70s, I was in a production of Let My People Come in New York. If you're familiar with that, it was like a poor man's O Calcutta, where I had to be on stage totally naked in this review. And when you can take your clothes off in front of an audience of hundreds of people through the course, there's pretty much nothing you can't do. And it's a learning experience. I had friends say to me, and we did it at the Village Gate down in Greenwich Village, "You'll never work uptown again." I worked plenty uptown after that. So it's sort of like taking the clothes off of your psyche, if you will, So now couple that with this process where you first take the onus off of yourself to be funny, because usually people think of improvisation as the kind of thing you see online today. It's got to be a joke. I got to be funny. Well, that's not what the Spolin method teaches you to do. It teaches you to be in the moment, to heighten your intuitive senses and your awareness, everything around you. Everything is created out of thin air. Space work is very important, and by space work I don't mean mime, pantomime. I mean if I have to use a toothbrush, I need to have space in between my hand for the brush, because we don't hold the toothbrush. There's always even it has dimension. So specificity is very key. And in the games, you're creating this reality absolutely out of thin air. Every minuscule thing, from the space work, from the creating the environment, the where, who you are, and what you're doing there. There's a who, what, where in most every game. So that kind of specificity and teaching this, the space work in very primitive kind of primal games, to manifest, what you learn there begins to manifest in on more sophisticated levels when you're designing the psychological makeup of a character, and you start asking yourself questions about what makes this particular character tick.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so I found it that this process, learning it and certainly teaching it, taught me how to be much more aware of the 360 me. And I'm a real stickler. This ain't a telephone, guys. It's not a telephone. This is a telephone. Right. Or if this is the phone these days, then this is the phone. Not this, because this, you become the phone. My hand's not the phone. That's the phone. So, I mean, it's really, I'm a real stickler for the space work, for the very primary basic things. And so, I've actually forgotten what your original question was, but that's how the process has worked for me. And I can, what risk can happen to the line if you go up, if you can't, you could die. And what's the chance of that happening? You know, slim to none. And it might be better on the other side. Nobody's really come back to tell us. I mean, if you're a Christian, you might want to, you might refute that. And I don't mean, believe me, to slam people that believe in that kind of beyond. But that's the worst thing that can happen. And that's just not going to happen to you. You're going to get embarrassed, but embarrassment is what you think other people are thinking of you. And when we're in class, certainly, everybody's rooting for you. Even things that you go up on a line, they're rooting for you. They want you to succeed, So it's these mindsets, it's these conversations that we have with ourselves that, that I do my best to have and to teach people to have.
Well, it's so evident. One of the things that I've appreciated as I've been looking back through some of your work is what an incredible physical actor you are. Whether it's a comedy piece or whether it's something dramatic, your physicality is impeccable. It's phenomenal. I love to watch it.
My physicality is what? I'm sorry, you froze.
It's impeccable.
Thank you.
I really appreciate, and it's a lot of fun to watch.
Thank you. I like just throw everything I got into, it. I mean, at the tender age of 70, it gets a little more difficult. So I like to direct more and point, go there and there, sitting on a director's chair rather than actually doing the backflips, which I've never done a backflip, but.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Grease. Because you were in a little movie called Grease. Or Ron, did you have something real fast?
Yeah, Mark, because we've got surprisingly a lot of questions about Grease. I did notice one thing here that I wanted to read real quick. There is a young lady named Ella Seri who says, and she says she's living in a country away from Broadway. It's currently 3 a.m. where she is at. So I wanted to let her get to bed pretty soon.
Oh, sure.
She asks, do you think the fact that I live in a country away from Broadway will bother me to succeed there?
No, it won't. No. You become the big fish you're swimming in, and you will find your way or they will find you. Pursue at all costs. Perseverance is the key. Don't let your geography stop you. No.
Yeah. One of the things that we tell people a lot is if you're looking to take up this profession because you think it'd be great to earn $20 million a year, or you want to be a star, be famous, find something else to do.
Yeah.
If it's your passion, if it's what you cannot not do, pursue it with everything you have.
Absolutely.
Just go after it.
Yes.
So,
absolutely.
Cool. So we were talking about some movie. I forget.
Yeah. Grease.
Vaselina.
So you were in the touring company and then you did the film.
Yeah.
So what were the differences and challenges of doing the stage show than doing something that was very different from the stage show?
Acting is acting.
Yep.
There's no difference. you have a camera, things have got to be a little smaller. You know, a raise of an eyebrow is enough. You know, that alone can look like this. On stage, of course, it's less subtle.
Yeah.
And you know, I used to work on the stage back before we had electronic amplification, guys, or wherever it sits.
Yep.
But you had to use your diaphragm, and you know, you were singing over either a 23-piece orchestra or, you know, a 10-piece rock band, and you had shotgun mics, and you had floor mics, and you had ceiling mics, and that was it. Of course, today, you know, we got the electric amplification, so there's a difference there. Certainly, in film, you know, you have the sound guy over you, you know, or you have a wireless mic on, so there are those differences. Hitting a mark, you know, you can only go so far before you're out of focus. There's that technique. The basic technique of acting is pretty much the same. And yes, I played Sonny in the stage show. The wonderful part about the stage, which the majors get to do it over and over and over again, and it changes a little bit. It's fluid, you know, it's a living organism, if you will, where though it's a living organism on film, they shoot it, it gets solidified, and there it sits in perpetuity. That's it. You know, nothing revolutionary here, guys, that you haven't already heard. So that's the big difference. The part that I don't care for a whole lot is when what they have solidified doesn't tickle my eyes or ears. There is much in the television and film world of mine that I look at and like, I can't do that again. No, gosh, can I do another take? No, that's what but you got to give up the ghost on it. That is just what it is.
Sure.
I think that kind of answers this question from Mark's parents, John and Laura. Having done film, television, and stage, what medium do you prefer most to work in?
I don't mean to be flip here, but again, I just like to work.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I love those for different reasons. You know, the stage, because again, you hear that live audience applauding or crying. You I get emotional thinking about it.
Oh yeah.
To be able to be in that kind of control in a positive way, to move a body of people, sometimes 6,000 people. When I played Professor Tinkerputt for Barney's big surprise on
I wasn't going to mention him, but now that you have, the secret's out.
See the watch? See the watch?
Nice.
You are in the house that Barney built, are you not?
I am. But to be able to move a body of people to a certain emotion, there ain't nothing like that. That's the highest of highs. When doing something on film, gosh, it's just so cool to be on a set and be on a set sometimes with big stars, and just the whole environment. It's the smells, the craft service.
Oh yes.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
Ooh. And on television, the smaller screen, same kind of thing. To be in a studio and to work something to a perfection, and you hope it's a perfection, and it solidifies. I just love all the mediums. I really do. And the musical theater, as opposed to straight plays, dramas, a different kind of audience moving that goes along there. You know, if they're rapt, if they're quiet, if they gasp, you know, all of that stuff that you're you know, in control of in that way. That's pretty cool too. You know, so I just love to work.
Yeah. So when we look back at Grease, and I know you do, this kind of ties into something that Brian is asking. He's asking what your favorite Grease project that you did with your Grease cast family was. But I think that it looks like you guys just had so much fun making that film.
I missed the first part of who is it that asked this question?
It was Brian.
Yes. Brian Wilson? Is it Brian Wilson?
It is Brian Wilson.
Hey, Brian, how are you, pal? So he wants to know, again, what is the most favorite project we've done?
Yeah.
Anytime we get together, it's stupid, ridiculous, fun, you know. So we can have it. I mean, some great stuff. Well, sometimes when we do these autograph signing shows, we get real silly together, and that's a lot of fun. Recently, And this was with one, two, three, four, five of my, or four of my Reese family. It was John and Olivia and Michael Tucci, who played Sonny, and Kelly Ward, who played Putsy, and our director, Randall Kleiser, and our casting director, Joel Thurm, and I. We went down to Florida in November, December to do 3 pieces. So where
you broke up there, Barry, to do 3 what?
Meet and Grease is what it was called, like meet and greet. So there'd be about 200 people that would pay a ridiculous amount of money to come and meet John and Olivia and have their photograph taken, and then walk over to us. We were the booby prize, and take pictures with us. And then they would be shuttled into the amphitheater. We played at West Palm Beach, Tampa, and Jacksonville. These huge amphitheaters. They came, the majority of the people, like rest 6,000 people, came to see the Grease sing-along, which was just on CBS last week in lieu of the Tonys. Actually, if you've ever seen the sing-along, it's kind of a follow the bouncing ball kind of thing. And before the show would start, Randall Kleiser, our director, would come out and introduce the 3 of us, the T-Bird, Sonny, Duty, and Putsy, Barry Pearl, Duty, Sonny, and Putsy, Barry Pearl, Michael Tucci, and Kelly Ward. We'd come out, the roof would come off the place, and we would do this opening show for them, and then introduce the movie. Movie would play on this huge LED screen. There's still lights. There's no front or rear projection. It's all through these little LED lights. And you can make it as big as a house, the screen. It's amazing. And at the end, where the car flies off, right underneath the screen, out come Olivia and John.
Oh, wow.
And the audience goes crazy. And then we do a question and answer. So that was a real cool event, just recently, which we were supposed to do all across the world until this COVID-19 hit.
Yeah.
So we're figuring out a way that we can, do it again in the near future.
Well, as popular as Grease has been, I have no doubt that somebody will want to do it. Again, I'm sure you'll get that.
Somebody what? Somebody what?
Somebody will want to produce that again. It's just such an endearing movie that it's non-generational.
It was Live Nation. It was Live Nation that did this one, and hopefully they'll pick up the slack once things get back to normal.
One of the recurring questions in here is, can you touch on 1 or 2, if you have just a couple, your favorite memories from the film, from making the film?
When we were rehearsing in the studio, because we rehearsed it as a play, and we put it together and then did it for whoever was on Paramount Lot at that time, which was like Jack Nicholson doing Going South, and the late Michael Landon when he was doing Little House on the Prairie, and Warren Beatty, all kinds of other people. And I remember hopping around like a kangaroo saying, "Hey, Liv, want to make you feel at home?" That. And the pie throwing contest.
Oh, yeah.
That was fun to throw a pie in Eddie's face. And I was so looking forward to flying across, like at the end of Beauty School Dropout.
Yeah.
Because I'd never flown before and wanted to do that. But it was kind of a jury rig kind of setup that they put us in. It was very uncomfortable. So we literally hung around all day. And my voice went up a couple of octaves because of the winter was hitting me. And doing Grease Lightning was great fun. Doing dancing on the bleachers for summer nights. There's silly things like, in the Frosty Palace, we were all there eating. I love eating on screen. Eating and dying. I mean, dying, bang, bang, but not being shot kind of dying, not my performance dying. But I like that kind of thing, But the eating, I was eating onion rings and sipping the malted. And I think because eating is kind of an intimate thing when you think about it.
Sure.
And it's like kissing on screen, too. It's very intimate. It's kind of neat, I see the light on an overhead light because I'm awful dark. Are you guys seeing the same thing? Or is it...
It looks okay to me. I mean,
yeah.
All right, that's fine. It's because it's natural light here. I don't have any of the overheads on. That's why.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you, why do you think Grease has stood the test of time so much? But I think you kind of nailed it right there. You guys, it was genuine. You guys had
a lot of camaraderie. Camaraderie was really the key, all the way down the line. There wasn't a bunch of it was 15 weeks. It was a labor of love. We just had so much fun playing together. And the music is terrific, and Pat Burt's choreography, and just it was a perfect storm of disciplines coming together that make it. And the story, boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl, is a classic, coming of age, and all of those things, all of those elements came together, and it's stood the test of time. It's actually. It boggles the mind because it wasn't initially a big success commercially. Fine, greatest reviews from many papers, many news organizations, and I guess after the 10th anniversary, that's when it really, I think they realized, ooh, we got an iconic classic here, so we're just riding that wave.
It's pretty cool. That's awesome. So now you do spend a lot of time with Inclusion Film camps, the education camps, and which I think is so admirable. Tell us a little bit about that and what that's like. It
was 7 years ago now, from Wendy Travolta, John's sister-in-law, and one of John's older brothers, Joey, has this company called Inclusion Films. And he's got several brick and mortar schools all up and down the West Coast where he teaches film arts to the special needs community. And many of them who have gone through that process have actually worked on films. In fact, John's Poison Rose film, there were a bunch of production folks. People run the camera, run sound, PAs. I was trained in everything. And a film that Joey directed called Carol of the Bells, which is about this young guy looking for his biological mother, who turns out to be someone with Down syndrome. And the star is R.J. Mitz from Breaking Bad, and Lee Purcell, and Donna Pescow, and Donna Mills. Some big people and big names in this. So he had his entire crew film that. It was like 100% or 90%, I guess, of folks with abilities. That's Joey's passion, has always been special needs. So Wendy had called me and said, Joey's looking for a teacher for the summer program. And we know you teach improv. And I guess I had expressed a desire years prior to that. I always forget how it is that, I don't know if John told them or what. And so 6 years ago, I went out on the road, never having done this before with the special needs community. And it was, I took fish to water. It was like, I really took to it. And so there are 3 teachers, and we go into a city for 2 weeks at a time, and the 3 teachers have 3 different classes to get the kids, not just kids, they're young adults. And I got the medium group from the medium age from 12 to 16, and then there's a 17 to 20, and a younger group from 9 to 12, etc. And they develop a 7-minute film and a 1-minute PSA or commercial. We do this in each city, and they act in them, they write them, they produce them. The teachers are the directors. We travel with a full film crew and an editor, an amazing man by the name of Chris Dubois, and his partner Paul Gomez. They edit as we go. And then in the fall, they do red carpet events where they exhibit the films in each of the cities. And they don't just come and you sit and watch the 3 films. There's a wraparound that goes on too. So for instance, the first year, the theme was Mr. Joey's Block, based on Mr. Rogers. And so we had this Mr. Rogers type set, and Joey Travolta played Mr. Joey. And he had 2 kids from each of the class, 2 students from each of the campers from each of the class come in, and he'd interview them. Okay, let's take a look at your film. Come back and discuss the film. And they'd leave, and the other 2 come in, and they'd do a little commercial segment, a little cooking segment with mix, and have all these little type of characters. So it was a whole show that would help to exhibit hold on just a second, what did I just do here? That would exhibit the films. So we do that in 6 to 8 cities all across the United States. And it's just been a joy to do that. It's such what you learn from these folks. They're amazing, gifted people.
Yeah, it's so cool. I love that you're doing that, and I love it. Both my parents are music teachers, and so for me, the importance of
Both your parents what? I missed that. Both your parents what?
my parents are music teachers, and so I think that, you know, I can't talk enough about the importance of arts education. I just think it's so important.
Very, very.
Barry, while we're on that subject, I'm going to mention the name Jody McCormick, Jody and Emily of Film Camp fame. They are watching. They say it's great to see you. We're not going to lie. Selfishly, we would love to see you do theater in New York, which you just recently, well, maybe it's a couple years now. I lose track of time. I said it was only, what was it that you recently did on Broadway?
Baby It's You back in 2011.
Yes.
But I was just
2011?
That was the last time I did, yeah. But I was there last year rehearsing for Boynton Beach Club, which we then did in Long Beach Island, which is in southern Jersey, actually. And I did that for a couple of weeks down there. So, but I was in New York rehearsing, and folks from New York were able to come down.
You broke up. You broke up there. You broke up.
So, it's Long Beach Island, which isn't too far from the city, from Manhattan.
Right.
So we rehearsed in Manhattan for a week, and then went down there, rehearsed another week, and opened and played for 3 weeks at oh my gosh, that I can't remember the name of the company. That's terrible. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's
Oh, it happened. It'll come back.
Had a
the
great
sad part
time.
is I thought Baby was about 2 or 3 years ago. So
no. It was,
anyway, they said
Surflight.
There you go.
The Surflight Theater. Surflight Boynton. With Andrea McCardle, my friend Andrea, who was the original Annie. Yeah, she was great. So
what Jody was asking was, if offered, can you be persuaded to reside on the East Coast for a while?
Well, work would have to bring me back there. You know, we were actually considering for a minute selling our home out here and moving back to Pennsylvania, actually, for our retirement. But the weather is a killer, and we just don't want to bear that weather, you know. And but I'd come back to work in a flash. It's always possible. I love Jody and Emily. Emily's one of my stars, by the way. I got to tell you, she's had some big parts in several of the films. When we go to Jersey, she has done. She's one of my success stories, if you will. A little trepidatious, but then she shines like that star that she is. And I hope that I have shown her the potential and the kinetic energy that she has. I think she's getting it. You know, she's believing me now because she sees back what she has solidified on the screen, and she's absolutely wonderful. And the whole family's great, and it's just always such a joy. I mean, through the years, many of the campers come back. You know, they're returnees, if you will. And Emily's returned, I guess, most of the time that I've been there, and it's always such a joy. You know,
Jody did say we will miss film camp this summer.
Yes, as do we. And
Nora Cohen said that, just a comment, as Barry's assistant at the New Jersey camp, she just want to say how amazing you are working with these kids.
They're pretty amazing. Learn than they do. Each and every year, it's such a gift. They are gifts. And Nora is just one of the most delicious human beings, and her son Charlie too. Some great folks. These are folks that sponsor. There are different sponsors in all the cities. So, and they get volunteers come in and work. And she's just so supportive. As a mother of someone with special needs, she just gets it, you know. And so does Jody. You know, she gets it, and it's just so great. We are missing it terribly.
Yeah.
Believe me.
Well, hopefully we'll get through this, and everybody will be back to doing these things.
Please.
Yeah. Here's hoping.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Well, I think what we'll do then is we'll kind of go over to our finale questions here.
Okay.
So these are rapid, to the best of our ability on Zoom, rapid fire, short answers.
Okay.
Number one, what is the first thing you do when prepping for a role?
Learn my lines, which I hate.
Thank you, though. Being off book is huge.
I just hate that process. Getting off book for the first rehearsal. I just, when I can, I like to be sans script. I like to start working with my hands right away. That's the answer.
Amen. Amen. For Ghostlight people out there, learn from this man.
Learn your lines.
Learn your lines.
What's that playing on your radio right now?
Talk radio.
Okay.
Is AM 1070 talk radio news. That's
Cool.
what I listen to.
What role from your resume would you like to reprise?
It froze. It froze. Say again, it froze.
What role from your resume would you love to reprise?
Nathan Detroit.
Nathan Detroit. Yep.
Yep. What dream role would you love to do that you haven't done already?
Tevye, the role of Tevye.
Yep. I love this question. If you could talk shop with any actor, living or dead, for one day, who would it be?
Oh, maybe Samuel L. Jackson.
Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many. Streep, the talk shop with Streep, Meryl Streep.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's so many others, and I've been able to talk shop with many, but that Pacino is another. De Niro would be another. Even the young actors, I'd like to talk to Shia LaBeouf. I had worked with Shia when he was doing Even Stevens, and I'd like to talk to him now that he's grown up, and he's gone through some tough times. But I'd love to pick his brain. I think he's an actor.
Oh yeah, super talented. What is your favorite thing to do in your downtime?
What I'm doing right now, actually, which I've been doing since this whole thing hit, I've cleaned out our garage, and I've come across some amazing memorabilia, amazing stuff from my past, pictures and scripts, my original Grease script, actually, with the original schedules and souvenirs and such. And the process was, moving that stuff out, renting a dumpster and getting rid of some stuff. And now I'm in the process of repainting the floor, sanding, and just so work around the house. I mean, around that part of the house, my man cave, if you will. Working with my hands. A Jew with power tools. Can you believe it?
That's great.
No. that scares me.
Let's see. What was the first cast album you were obsessed with?
Annie Get Your Gun.
Okay.
Huh?
Yeah, Annie Get Your Gun. Yeah.
This one might be a hard one. Use one word or a few to describe what separates great actors from good ones.
Behaving properly on the field.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
That, by the way, is it's hard to define what a professional is. Is it somebody that gets paid? Is it somebody with an agent? Is it somebody with union representation? I know a lot of unprofessional actors.
Yep.
Not a lot that have those things. Real, jackasses.
Mm-hmm.
It's the one that comes to the field and does their job and gets along, and that's a pro. My wife has none of those affiliations, and I've worked with her on the stage. She works in commercial real estate management, but her sideline, if you will, she's acted, she's produced, she's stage managed, and those three things she is a pro at because she knows how to behave on the field.
Yes, she does.
And because you've worked.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
With her, you're right.
I met Cindy doing a production of Kiss Me Kate at Theater Palisades. She was our stage manager. And, there's times to have fun and there's times to work. And when your foot gets onto the stage, it's time to work, stop the bullshit. And yeah.
That's it.
Love a stage manager like that.
She's the best.
Yep.
For an actor breaking into the biz, New York or LA?
New York.
New York?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Why would that, just out of curiosity, why would you?
Probably because of the density of stage work that's there. And there's a lot of stage work out here. But the feeling, the dynamic, it's so centered. And there's a lot of television production in New York.
Yeah.
So you got the best of all possible worlds back there.
Yeah. I would agree. One of our last guests was a casting director, a friend of mine, and he says that in New York, he's stationed. He's super busy there.
You froze. He says what? You froze. He says what?
He is way busier there than he would have been over in LA. So.
Is this somebody I might know?
I don't know. His name's Blaine Johnston.
I don't.
With ABC Disney.
No, I don't.
Yeah, but anyway, he says New York is the place to be.
Yeah.
If you could give one piece of advice to someone wanting to get into the biz, what would it be?
Perseverance, as I mentioned before. Do not get discouraged. There's a wonderful quote. I forget. It was a poster that was above one of my agent's desks, the reception desk. It said there are a lot of talented derelicts. There are a lot of I can't do it justice, but the last line it says is perseverance, and perseverance is alone. That's the key, is to just stay with it. You're going to get more no's than yeses. Mm-hmm. And study. Get your degree. And again, try to get it, because that stuff will come to play, and then study privately. It's a little different again from when I was going to college, but get a well-rounded education, mm-hmm. and study dance and singing and acting technique, mm-hmm. and commercial acting for commercial, cold reading, all that stuff, best you can.
That's fantastic. Well, Barry, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. It has been just a pleasure. This has been great. And Ron, I know, was super excited to be able to get you on here. So, thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, you both are exceedingly welcome, and I'm honored, and I thank you for having me on, to have a voice and to hopefully impact somebody. I always have this at the end of my, under my name on my emails, and it makes me emotional every time I look at it. And it's much for good or ill.
I'm sorry, Barry, you broke up. Can you start that from the beginning?
Yes, I sure can. I sure can. The life I touch, for good or ill, will touch another life, and that in turn another, until who knows where the trembling stops, or in what far place my touch will be felt. And that is a quote by Frederick Bruckner. And it is so true. You just never know who you're going to impact.
Very true.
And hopefully I've impacted with a positive spin to things. Look, I can get down and dirty with this because I'm very angry, as I think many of us are. And I have said some not such nice things to some people who I do not respect. But the core of me is more about the positation, if you will. I mean, talk is cheap. I'd like to believe that I behave in a more positive way than sometimes some of my stuff on social media suggests, but I think I succumb to that anger that many of us are feeling. And for that, please forgive me, folks, if I've offended. But more often than not, I'd like to think that I've been positive, to be as positive as you possibly can be.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for the soapbox.
Well, thank you. And for those of you tuning in, we want to thank you for spending the time with us. And remember, as we have said in past episodes of Behind the Curtain, there's a lot that you can do to help out right now. Consider making a donation to the Actors Fund. Consider looking at some of the other charities that might need our assistance right now. But at the end of the day, we really just can't wait to get back to work doing what we love. And so with that, Ron, I think we can sign off.
I think we're good.
All right.
Love you, my friend.
I love you too.
Good night, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Barry.